Joining us now is U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Good morning.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
You know, just let me get a comment from you, if you wouldn't mind. We're sitting here talking about politicians talking about currencies. The president-elect talked the dollar down yesterday. Do you think it's appropriate for the president of the United States or the president-elect or whoever to talk about the dollar?
Well, you know, from my standpoint, where we've had strong economic performance, we've had a strong dollar. That allows American consumers to be able to purchase more things. So I think that's a good thing. But I realize a strong dollar harms exports. So there's always winners and losers when we start talking about currency manipulation and you know exactly what we do in terms of monetary policy. You know, from my standpoint, you know, being a business person coming from the private sector, you go after the low-hanging fruit. And I think you have to focus on the number one component of a solution is economic growth. From my standpoint, the biggest problem, the biggest hindrance to economic growth is overregulation. So we can, through executive order, we can overturn a bunch of these midnight regulations. Other executive orders, we can use the Congressional Review Act to repeal some of these regulations. I think we first do that, it'll inject greater confidence, greater certainty. If business owners and entrepreneurs, business managers aren't worrying about, you know, complying with federal regulations, they can concentrate on producing better products and better services at a better price. That's what creates economic growth.
So then you think right off the bat, as of January 21st, if you will, that you're going to start to see some of these regulations come off the books or at least be rolled back in some respects fairly in short order?
Absolutely, and evidence that it'll work is just take a look at the confidence that's already been restored to the economy by the election of Donald Trump, who businesses view is going to be more friendly, have a better attitude, focus on economic growth, get government off the backs of entrepreneurs and businesses. And so that actually does create that animal spirits that you need for strong economic performance.
You said of Obamacare, quote, "It's not going to be fixed overnight. Let's be honest with the American public in terms of this is going to take some time." You think the Republicans have been honest with the American people to this point?
Well, I think the phrase repeal and replace was appropriate prior to Obamacare's implementation. I mean, then you could have repealed it, you could have put something in place, nobody would have been harmed. You didn't have already the tentacles of Obamacare. You didn't already have the damage, the destruction, the harm created by Obamacare, driving premiums up, you know, distorting healthcare markets and health insurance markets. So, no, it's far more complex. So from my standpoint, I've been talking about repairing the damage and then transitioning to a system that actually works. That takes some time. It's way more complex than simply repeal and replace. That's a fun little buzzword, but it's just not accurate.
Do you think your party's on the same page as you are?
Well, I think more and more people are, as they're starting to take a look at the daunting task of how do you start repairing the damage of Obamacare, realizing it's not particularly easy. We are going to need Democrats to help us because we can repeal, you know, a big chunk of Obamacare, the taxes, the subsidies. What's not necessarily on the table right now are the market reforms, because I don't know that we can do that with 51 votes using a budget reconciliation process. And it's the market reforms that on the individual market literally have caused, in Wisconsin, individual rates to double and triple, out-of-pocket maximums to also skyrocket. So it's those market reforms that we really have to address. That's been, from my standpoint, the real disaster of Obamacare. And again, it's a question as to whether or not we can do that through budget reconciliation. So my thought process is let's start working with Democrats. Let's transition to a system that'll actually work. That, you know, Democrats are talking about they want to fix it. Well, let's fix it for the benefit of the American public.
Senator, when I hear a lot talk about deregulation, a lot of those rules tend up being environmental rules. And yet when I talk to Republicans from their individual districts and individual rules, there's support for some of those individuals. How far is the Republican Party ready to go in the Senate when it comes to rolling back environmental regulations?
Well, I take the regulations, put them in different buckets. What can you repeal with executive action? What can you repeal in the Congressional Review Act? That's a finite bucket based on, you know, when they were finalized. And then you're going to have to overwrite bad regulation with new regulation, but it all should be focused on what regulations are doing the greatest economic harm for the least amount of economic benefit. And so again, even that is pretty complex. The Obama administration has flooded the zone with regulations.
Did you mean the least amount of economic or the least amount of environmental benefit?
Well, both. I mean, I think it's kind of part and parcel of the same issue. So you take a look at the cost benefit of any regulation. You know, how much does it cost in the economy? What's been the benefit? You know, economically, environmentally, you know, to whatever. So you take a look at that cost benefit relationship. I don't think this administration has been particularly rigorous at their cost benefit analysis. We need to be pretty rigorous as we start repealing these regulations. Take a look at that.
Senator, thanks for the time this morning. I know we'll see you soon.
Have a great day.
All right.